Hi there. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. This is episode 7 of Be Your Own Guru. I'm Paige Alexander.
And I'm Jamie Morgan Reno. Good to see you, Paige.
You too.
Our mission at Real Food Recovery is to help empower people to make educated and life-renewing decisions that promote physical and emotional health, longevity, vitality, peace, and wholeness. We are food plan neutral and processed food free, always at Real Food Recovery. And very excited for our 7th episode together. Be your own guru. How cool. What a cool topic.
I know. But before we get started, you have a little story you'd like to share, right?
I do. Yeah. Speaking is sort of connects to the theme of being your own guru. I went to an event in sort of at the harbor near where I live last weekend. And it was an event that I knew was going to be filled with a lot of junk food offerings and fair kind of style of food and, carnival kind of setting. And I immediately, realized that I needed to bring my afternoon snack with me. Because when I go to events like that have a lot of processed food available and they really barrage you with the sights and the smells. I wanted to make sure that I could navigate that without getting, if I got hungry, navigate it on real food. So I brought, for my husband and I brought us, apples, these beautiful apples that I found, these envy apples that I found at a local farmer's market. And I brought some raw cashews and almonds and brought those with us and had that with us while we walked around. And when we got hungry, we ate that instead of spending money on drinks or sodas or processed food that was everywhere. But we were meeting friends and we were going to get dinner after we did sort of the event and the attractions. And we ended up going to, I know when there's a wild card restaurant that I'm not familiar with, that people are just picking, I know that I might need to say, thank you, no, thank you, and then just go do my own thing. My husband is totally okay with that. He knows the drill, that's sometimes, I can't just fly by the seat of my pants when it comes to restaurant choices. But my friends know me well enough to know that I have, this recovery process, and it's very important to me to eat whole, fresh food, and clean, to eat clean. And so when they picked the restaurant, it was called the Fisherman's Wharf, and I'm like, okay. In Texas, when you have any kind of Fisherman's Wharf meals, it's usually something deep fried, and it seems to be it's a Southern thing. All the fish is fresh but deep fried, and so I thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna reserve my judgment. I didn't say anything, and we got to the restaurant. We had to wait for a table, which was good because I'd had my snack. I wasn't starving. I wasn't ready, ready or willing to make a decision I didn't want to make. And so I just walked over to the menu and looked at the menu on the wall, and I started to just scan it for things to see. And based on the way that I choose to eat and my food plan that works for me, there really was nothing except the side dishes, some of the side dishes that worked. And I thought, okay, it was a really relaxing day. We were all having such a good time. I didn't want to say goodbye to my friends. I didn't want to leave, and I didn't want to compromise my food. So I just walked in and asked for the manager, and I said, hey, we're about to get seated. I just, I've got some specific food requests. I just want to make sure that if you guys can honor them or not, and how I should order. And he was like, no problem. We can help you. We're happy to do it. I will just make sure that you tell them that you talk to me. And so I did that, went to the table. My friends asked me, is this place going to work for you? And I said, I can make it work. And I ordered my clean food, prepared the way that I needed it prepared, ate out, and it was fine. And I, enjoyed myself. I was able to be in the moment. We had this beautiful view of the Gulf, and it was a lovely night. And then we just, spent the rest of the evening together at their house and just, had fun, just relaxing and talking and connecting. And I thought, if I had if I listened to that addiction voice or listened to the fearful recovery voice, which also sometimes is there for me,
Mhm.
I would have left and I would have, found a restaurant that maybe I could navigate. But I asserted my needs and I asserted my requests, and I was very clear with my requests, and they were able to accommodate it no problem.
I love
So
that story. And restaurants want to accommodate you.
they
People
do.
are afraid to speak up, like, oh no, I don't want to be a problem or look like I'm a nuisance. They want to hear from you. They
Yes.
want you to be happy. They want you to come back. It's okay. And this, I mean, that is their business. And you weren't
Yes.
asking them to do anything crazy,
No,
just a few simple options that they could easily modify.
exactly. Yep.
So smart. That is really a perfect story to lead into being your own guru because that's you became your own expert in that moment of
Exactly.
how to handle the situation. And that's what we do in recovery is we are here to problem solve. And the
Exactly.
more we do that, the more we learn to trust ourselves and build up our confidence in new unfamiliar situations. We become quicker. We get new default settings to do that. So excellent. I'm so glad you did that. And I was thinking as you were telling that story, how different the rest of your evening would have gone
Exactly.
had you made a poor choice.
That's
Would
right.
you have been able to go to your friends and relax and
No,
enjoy? Would you have been
no,
able to join the scenery from the restaurant? I mean, just
no.
it just impacts
Nope.
everything once you
Or
start
the
in.
conversation, none of it.
Nothing. Once you start in on the processed food, you might as well forget it. You're isolated and alone, whether you're with people or not the rest of the
That's right.
evening.
That's right. And we laughed so hard and it's so often. And it was fun because the people that I hang with, we don't use alcohol. And so it was just genuine belly laughter from just a genuine place. And we just had the best time. And I thought, if I had left because I was afraid of the food, or if I had made a food choice, like you said, that put me back into the processed food, I would have felt really terrible all night. I'm sure I would have had stomach issues and all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
reactions. And the next day I would have been hungover, food
Yep.
hungover,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have ruined my weekend. And instead, the next day I woke up and I just bounced out of bed and it was just another day.
Beautiful. I
Mhm.
love I love
Thanks.
those stories, and we need to talk to more people about sharing their stories, things like that, because that
Yes,
gives other people ideas and confidence to go out there and face those tricky situations. And,
I agree.
if she can do it, I can do it too.
That's
Well,
right.
that kind of leads right into how do you become your own guru? Where do you even start? How do you presume that you are smart enough to be your own expert? And for me, it really I've said before, I'll be 60 in a few months. Until these last few years, really thought everybody else knew better than me. And I can't tell you why I thought that. And that may be a common denominator among humans, but I had been to LA weight loss and Weight Watchers and done the keto and the intermittent fasting. I remember having to, at LA weight loss, having to confess to those ladies everything I ate and have it written
Yes.
down. And Weight Watchers, you're weighing yourself and you're just, well, I mean, I guess I'm supposed to be doing what they're telling me to, and I'm going to do these humiliating things because that's the only way that I'm ever going to be lose weight, and that's the only way then I would ever be happy because the two were the same for me. So
Mhm.
I thought so. Even in a recovery program now, I you just really learn with time and experience to trust yourself. When I did keto, I missed my apples. I should be eating apples if I want to eat apples. My body wants apples.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what in the heck am I doing?
Mhm.
I'm not ever going to go back to having someone else tell me what I should and should not eat. I am in charge of my own food list. I
Yes.
make
Or how
that
much you
decision.
should or should not eat, right?
Yes, all those
Different for
things.
everyone. It's different
Yeah.
for everyone.
Hmm. So how did you become a smarty pants? Oop, I'm in guru.
It's so interesting. Yeah, same thing. Since I was obese since I was a little kid, I was in my first Weight Watchers meeting with a bunch of women that were, way older than me. I was like maybe 11 or 12. It was not,
Wow.
it's way too young to be in a Weight Watchers meeting. But, I was growing up in a era where I was really the only fat kid. And so my mom was just really concerned, and
Mhm.
that's how her concern showed up, right? She just took me to a Weight Watchers meeting. She had also herself had been part of that rice diet study at Duke University, with Walter Kempner, and she had given me the rice diet to use, which was literally like, rice and boiled chicken and, tasteless, saltless, nothing. When you're 12, 13 years old, you're like, I just didn't even know what to make of it. And again, she was coming from a place of love and protection and concern, and it just backfired spectacularly.
Mhm.
Pediatricians would just tell me, just, if you love a hamburger, just eat half a hamburger and push the rest away. And I would just look at them like, if I could do that, I'd be doing that. Like, are
Yeah,
you
well, I wouldn't be
joking?
here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if I could just eat half a cookie,
Yeah.
or just
Uh-huh.
put the other half of my sandwich away for later. Like, who's doing that? So even now today, I see people leave food on their plate, and we've talked about it. And I'm like, are you nuts?
I
There's food
know. I know. It's weird. I've told you that my husband leaves a
there.
bite of oatmeal in his bowl, and I'm like, you're an alien. You're
Yeah.
a monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you
What's wrong
doing?
with you? What's wrong with you?
Aliens. Yeah, aliens have come in and
And
possessed your body.
that's right. And I talk to my friends in recovery that are these are friends in recovery of from alcoholism. And they say the same thing about people that leave a half a glass of wine. They're like, "Are
Oh.
you crazy?" And I could take it or leave it. I could care less about. I could leave a half a margarita and not even think twice, because
Mhm.
I'm feeling a little woozy. I don't want to keep drinking it. If they think that's insane. They're like, "Are you crazy? Who does that?" And I
Mhm.
feel the same way about half a brownie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's so I was thinking when you were saying that your doctors tell you to eat half. I'm thinking about how I can get another. So I don't know
Exactly.
how you expect me to eat just
I'm not even
half.
re yeah, I'm not even registering that I should stop halfway through the first portion. I'm scheming to get my second.
Mhm.
That's right. Yes, very true. My inner voice just kept growing louder and louder, right? So like I knew that this concern and this suggestions were coming from loved ones from a place of love and protection. It didn't feel that way, but that's really where it was coming from. And I just kept eating to push this inner voice down. And I'd spent, so many years rejecting myself because I felt so rejected by others. And I was, sort of running from those parts, right? And disconnecting from everything below my neck. Really. I just punished that part of me and all of those parts of me that were sort of my wisdom giving giving parts. And I did not want to stop long enough to hear what they had to say. Is really
Yeah.
what it came down to. And I was running from God, and I was running from God's will in my life. I was just totally in self-will. I'm going to do this. I'm a human. I got this mode. And I was missing so much of the big picture. And I didn't understand how to stop putting people in these places like you talked about, in these places of expert above
Mhm.
me and my own wisdom and my own body's needs. And once I had myself in the right order with God, and I was able to tune into the small voices inside of me that needed attention and needed love and needed connection, I gained a lot more clarity. And I had a lot more guidance about where to go and how to feed myself, and the cravings calmed down, and the parts that I pushed away for 40 plus years were now being integrated and loved on, and
Mhm.
accepted into all of me. I was accepting all
Mhm.
of me. And then my body started to really just be very clear about what it needed from me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. When you were talking, I was thinking about how when people are put in these positions of power, we just automatically assume they're
Yes,
superhuman. They know all the answers. They must be the experts of you. They look like on the outside they have their act together, but this is just so powerful. When you learn to be the expert of you and trust your intuition, that's the ultimate gift in recovery is just
totally.
trusting yourself. So, which leads into for me the question of, okay, how do I learn to trust myself? And for
Mhm.
me, it was through failure,
Yeah,
repeated failure, time and experience, and failure after failure after failure. It's like you're hitting your head against the wall, bang
yeah,
out, bang out, bang out.
yep.
Oh,
What
okay,
about what
that
about failure
hurts.
though? Because that's interesting to me. What about failure?
It's data collection, right? For
Yes,
me, it's just huge data collection that, okay, I'm just weeding out the things that don't work. And
that's
what
right.
didn't work is what everybody else had to say about how I need to be living my life and what I needed to eat. And I can only eat between these hours. And
Right. Right. This
it,
amount or yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. And
agreed.
I was so desperate. You just go, okay, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. Well,
Me
that's
too.
what the book says. So I'm going to do that too.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
failure ended up being my best friend, and
Yeah,
misery seemed to, is the second component to that. And it
absolutely.
it changes things. The misery changes things. What about for you? How did you learn to trust yourself?
Yeah, I really appreciate the failure thing. It brings up one of my favorite quotes from Thomas Edison that, he was trying to find the right filament for his very first light
Right.
bulb, and he'd failed like 10,000 times, and these
Uh-huh.
reporters said, "Mr. Edison, you failed 10,000 times." And he said, "I
Hmm.
didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that don't work."
Yes,
And I
that's
thought,
exactly.
and by the way, if you ever are interested in studying Stoic philosophers, Thomas Edison was a Stoic philosopher, modern Stoic, and I love that he was because I learned a lot from Thomas Edison. Believe me, a lot in my own recovery about how to overcome adversity. Really amazing. He's an
Oh.
amazing human. He was an amazing human being. Certainly not. Not he was a human, but he was really incredible. And so when I think about failure, I just kept showing up for myself, right? Again and again. I didn't look at it as, for me, I didn't look at my missteps as failures per se. I just kept showing up. I looked at it
Hmm.
more of as resilience, uh,
Yes.
action and acting in resilience instead of beating myself up. And there are many times when I don't want to do it. I mean, if you have a month's worth of workouts, ask me how many days I feel like doing those workouts, and I might tell you a 0.5 days I feel like doing it. Like I just don't. It's not something
I
I feel
mean,
like, but I
yeah,
choose to do it. I choose to do
yeah.
it. So I just kept showing up for myself, and it's the same way I teach leadership development, right, for my day job, and I tell leaders all the time, integrity is the number one, credibility builder, trust builder from a leader, doing what you say you will do. So once I learned that was the key, right? The key credibility builder was doing what you say you were going to do. I just started to do whatever I told myself I was going to do.
Nice. Oh, I like that a
And
lot.
that's how I learned to trust myself.
We'll get into that more because that is a whole topic in and of itself. So,
It sure
who do
is.
you look to now? Who's your guru? Is there anyone you look to for guidance?
My spiritual walk, my
Mhm.
relationship with God, as I understand God, that really helps me. It's not about religion for me. It's way bigger and more steady in my life. And I find that my inner family, my inner child, my inner teenager, my inner critical parent, critical voice, my inner feeling self will try to run the show if I'm not careful. So
Mm.
I have to make sure that I look to my loving adult, which gets guidance from my spiritual practices.
Mhm.
And that is really where I go. I don't go outside of me or outside of God as I understand God for guidance anymore.
It's interesting that you say that because for me, I want to say I don't look to anyone, yet I look to everyone. Of course, God is part of mine too, but I don't look to anyone in the sense that I trust myself ultimately, but I am still willing and open to hear what people
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
try it
Sure.
on for size, think about it, noodle it around.
Yes. And
And
listen.
yes, and then I go to myself to go,
That's right.
what do we think about that? I
That's
I
right.
guess the better way to say it is I just don't take people at face value like I used to when I was younger and less experienced. I just said, well, oh, okay, then
Yeah.
that must be right. And you've got all these other people following you. If you
Yeah.
got all these other people doing what you're telling them to do, I guess I should be doing it too. Oh
Yes.
gosh, what a dummy. I just
I
I'm just
totally
that
get it.
a lemming, I'm just following along.
But I would, and I did the same kind of stuff. I just didn't even think.
Yeah, right. I didn't even know thinking
Just
about it
follow.
was an option, or questioning people
Right.
was an option.
Yes. Because
So,
they knew more than me, because they were
right,
on a website, or they were in a book, or they
right.
were, yeah,
Yes, I
on TV.
agree. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
So
never, go ahead.
it's just interesting, the process of evolving. I think it comes with wisdom and maturity as
Mhm.
well. And I wish I, had that confidence, wisdom, and maturity decades ago, but
Too.
it's okay. That was my journey, and I'm here now, and it's all good. What do you think makes us so vulnerable to these experts?
Well, when I think about that question, I think a lot about, um, when I tried years ago, I tried keto, and it was back when keto was the craze, and it was probably 2017, 16, 17. And I just went full bore into keto. I follow, and when I try something, when I there's an expert that I want to, try to follow the program, I will absolutely throw myself 110% into it. I will follow it to
Mm-hmm.
the letter. I
Mm-hmm.
was following this 20 something influencers keto plan with her recipes, which were filled with, like, I mean, you were cooking like plantains in beef tallow. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, add a little olive oil. It was like straight up the worst kind of fats for you. And,
Mm-hmm.
macadamia nuts for snacks. And
Mm-hmm.
and she was not saying you can eat, large quantities of everything, but there was measuring involved. I followed it to a T.
Mm-hmm.
And a month later, I went to put on my jeans and they would not zip. And I was like, what, these should have been big on me. Like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I'd followed this expert, right? I'd followed this person to the letter. And I realized, oh my gosh, she's got a different metabolism. She's got a different genes than me.
Yes.
Like, she publicized what worked for her with her
Mm-hmm.
activity level, her age, her genetic composition, her metabolism. That's great. It worked for her, but how how silly of me to think that that would work for me.
Yeah.
I don't have what she has, and not to say that it's not saying she's better or worse than me. It's just, it's almost insane if I think about it now, that I would follow someone else's food plan.
Right. That reminds me of, I was up late one night, probably had insomnia or something, and I've got the shopping network on, or whatever that is, and some
Mhm.
guy comes on to show me his ab machine that he for 27.95 and 20 payments, and he's showing us these washboard abs that you're going to get, and you only have to spend 5 minutes a day. I must have been delirious. I bought the machine, which is still sitting down, collecting dust in our workout room.
How
And
funny.
well, yeah, he had the washboard board abs. So, well, I guess if I do this for 5 minutes a day, I'm going to look like him.
Right, right,
I,
exactly.
I need I need my money back. That
Yeah.
absolutely, and I followed it to a T too. Guess what? A middle-aged menopausal woman that's had 3 kids. Probably the washboard abs are not in my future for my genetic makeup, but I paid the money.
I
I
get
paid
it.
the money, so
Yeah,
where's the six pack?
I get it.
So that just made me think of that. So true. But what makes us vulnerable? Desperation.
Yeah,
Desperate. We're desperate for
yes.
freedom from addiction or whatever it is that has a
Yep.
grip around our necks. We're just desperate. And so we keep looking for the next shiny thing. We'll do
Yeah,
anything. And then we start a new shiny thing. And we're so excited in the beginning. And then that fizzles after a few weeks when it doesn't work, because ultimately nothing's ever worked, right?
that's
From,
right.
the 100 things you've tried, the 100 things I've tried, has anything ever worked?
No, not
No.
not long term, and it wasn't sustainable long term. And that's
Right.
why, for me, it was, I was vulnerable to experts. It was, I wanted their validation. It was like, I wanted, it's almost like this weird, like,
Yes.
if I do this, then I'll get your validation, or I'll get your attention because I followed your program. I would be in analysis paralysis. Like, I would go and just Google and research and read and, develop this plan based on, I mean, it was just, it was like dark rabbit holes of time that I would go down and research, just to basically find out that program or that research doesn't apply to me, or it wasn't sustainable for me long term.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
that's my that's my measuring stick, is what's sustainable for me.
Mhm.
not wanting to take ownership, right? That's something else that I think makes me susceptible to experts, right? Well, if I fail, it's your fault, expert, not
That
mine.
I have heard that before. I think it was maybe even Dr. Phil talking about that,
Mhm.
similar thing where this wife was complaining that the husband never made any decisions. And, he says, well, she's just overbearing and bossy, so I just let her do it. And Dr. Phil whipped around. He said, you don't make any of the decisions because you don't want to hold any of the responsibility. If something goes wrong, if something goes south, you can go, wasn't my fault. I
Right.
didn't make that decision. So I like that point that if something goes wrong, we don't have any liability
Mhm.
in it. But yes, all these plans not
Yeah.
sustainable. They might have worked for them, but they
Mhm.
have a different set of circumstances, and you just can't put square pegs in round holes. It
That's
just
right.
doesn't work. So even on our our own food plan here at Real Food Recovery of no processed foods, um, you still within that group of no processed foods, you still have
Mhm.
to find your way and navigate through the mire of what in those works for you, which is why we never tell people what to eat. I don't know what works for you.
Right.
How could I possibly know?
Mhm.
So you do
Yep.
your homework, and through that process, you just learn to trust yourself,
And
which is
as
the
we age,
greatest gift. Greatest,
exactly,
greatest
exactly.
gift.
Yep. And as we
So,
age, I found that, our food needs change. Our
yes.
macronutrient ratios change.
Hmm.
Our ability to tolerate certain styles or types of foods or certain macronutrient mixes, that changes as well. It's just the way it goes, and
Hmm.
why I would try to fit myself into someone else's program.
Which brings up another point of we will never be recovered. Will always be in recovery because there are changes in life circumstances, in age, in
Mhm.
um, conditions that we have around us. So yes, good
Yeah.
point. Really good point. Great point to end on. Anything else you want to say about being your own guru before we jump into a few viewer questions?
Well, I equate it with self-abandonment in my own recovery. I'm not
Mm.
pointing a finger at anyone. I'm just looking and reflecting on my own recovery. Every time I thought someone else knew something more than me about me, I was essentially saying to my inner parts, like, I got this, guys. You pipe down in there. I got this. This person that doesn't know us at all, they're gonna show
We're
us
going to
the
do
way out
everything
of,
they say.
yep, they're gonna show us the way out of our
Yeah,
addiction
it
that
seems
we've gotten
reasonable.
ourselves into, right? Like these little parts that I've been pushing away, and the spirit's voice that I've been pushing down in me.
Mhm.
It really is self-abandonment 101. And I don't, when I abandon those intuitions and the inner wisdom that I have and my own body's needs, when I abandon that, it just compounds it. It makes it worse and they get louder. So it
Oh,
really
good
just
point.
defeats the purpose.
Good point. Yeah, as I like you're saying, it's crazy making.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good point. Great note to end on. Okay, well, let's get into a couple of viewer questions. I think we have
Yeah.
for time for a couple here. So the first question is, I panic when cravings hit. What can I do to keep myself safe and out of the junk food? You want to take this or you want me to take this?
I want to hear what you have to say here. I've got some thoughts.
So it's tough. I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, you just do this, this, and this, and this. It's not easy. It's still not easy for me, but I've gotten better. I have learned a few things. I understand now that cravings are just thoughts and they'll pass. Distraction is very helpful. You can text a friend, write in your journal, go outside, take a few deep breaths, listen to a podcast. I one of my favorite little practices with I'm not a big deep breather and all the breathing exercises, but there is one thing I do, and hopefully some of you are seeing this on your screen. But if you're just listening, what you do is you take your hands and put them on each cheek, and 3 times you gently say to yourself, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And there is an instant shift.
Mhm.
And you get an oxytocin boost, an instant shift in calm, and it's amazing how it works. Now, you may have to repeat it 10 more times to get through this
Yeah,
crisis period, but it's a good start. And so again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, the guru. You've got to just practice. You've got to
right.
take time and practice and find out what lands well to get that. We want to get that blood flow back to the frontal lobe quickly. And
Yes.
the other thing I'll say about cravings is I try to be proactive so that I don't put myself in
Mhm.
situations where I'm triggered. Make sure I've got food with me. I don't let myself get too hungry. So the proactive fight, I would rather put a bunch of energy into being proactive than to have to react in a panic. So there's a lot of work that goes in on the front end. That makes
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
do?
Oh, same. I mean, setting myself up, if I know there's going to be food
Mhm.
that starts the cravings for me,
Mhm.
or triggers cravings in me, I will just make sure that I have my clean food with me or a clean snack with me. There are some times that I eat preemptively because I know that there's going to be a lot of stimulation around me that would make me want or to want to cave into the processed food. Like every year we go on a couples retreat, my husband and I, and there's a
Mm.
bonfire, and there, of
Mm.
course, there's s'mores around the bonfire, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And those are such fond memories from childhood. Um, not the
Right.
s'mores, but the campfire and the
Mhm.
community and,
Mhm.
being in nature, and also it was linked to that food. So I'm aware enough to know that I will bring, even though I don't typically eat after dinner, I just don't
Me
like
neither.
to, but I will bring my snack of, a fresh fruit and some kind of nut or some kind of, um, you know, uh, source of fat or protein with that fresh fruit. I'll bring it with me and I will eat preemptively so that I don't end up
Yes.
saying yes to the marshmallow, yes to the s'more. It's just not worth it. And because I know it's a very heavily cued environment.
Yes. I'm
So
so glad. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I will break my rule
Yeah.
of no eating after dinner. I will
Mhm.
break that rule to stay out of something that to me I know is setting me up for potential cravings and a lapse.
I love that you brought that point up, that I'm taking a little bit of a right turn, that when people are trying to get off sugar and they're going through recovery, they're fairly new and they're going to an event similar to what you explained. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, you've got one job, and that's all that we're going to focus on, the staying off the sugar. If you have to eat more of something else to keep you from having a major sugar
Go
binge,
for it.
okay. We call this harm reduction, but we do what we need to do to keep ourselves safe. So it's good, better, best. It's
Mhm.
better that you eat a little more of regular food than to even start in on a and onto a place with neon signs that are
That's right.
flashing everywhere. So
That's
I'm
right.
glad you brought that point up. That's very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, it's that time of year where there are a lot of festivals and
Yes.
large gatherings with so much junk food everywhere. I know those foods aren't good for me, but once I'm around all those sights and smells, I know I'm going to cave. What should I do?
Well, I told that story at the top of this podcast for, that
Mhm.
the answers that question as far as what I do. But the other thing that I remember is, um, you know, if I say to myself, I know I'm going to cave, then I usually cave. So I tell myself a different story. Like I know I'm strong
Oh,
and
I
I
love
can I
that.
know I can resist these cues and triggers. I know that food makes me sick is really one of my favorite things to say because it's absolutely true. Those foods make me sick. Not
Mhm.
just not just long term, right? Diabetes or cardiac issues or blindness related to diabetes. Anything like that is long term, but short term, like I don't want to feel hungover tomorrow. I don't want to
Yeah.
feel junky tonight. I don't want to be emotionally dysregulated for no
Yeah.
reason.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I love the power of the messaging of the brain, and I've tried that too where, oh my gosh, I think I'm starving. I'm gonna have to eat a whole bunch tonight after dinner's over, and I can actually go, "You're fine.
Yeah,
Settle down. It's
yeah,
okay. I'm gonna feed you in the morning. It's gonna be okay. You've had enough." And
Right.
it's amazing how that gives you supersonic strength, how your brain just literally
Mhm.
believes whatever messaging you tell it. So
That's right.
the other thing that I do with clients we work with is I'm going to use the state fair, the Kansas State Fair. When I was first in recovery, I was panicked because we were going to the state fair, and everybody knows what's at the state fair. It's not just the animals;
Yeah.
it's rows and rows of booths of highly processed food. And
Mhm.
a very wise leader said, "Don't go to the state fair. Go to a scavenger hunt." So
Mhm.
you make a list of, I want to look for somebody with a red baseball cap on. I want
Mhm.
to look for a lady with a yellow top. I want to see a baby in a stroller. I
Mhm.
want to see if I see any birds in the sky or if there's a singer on a stage. You make your own list. And
Yeah.
so you're looking at things and
I
trying to
love that.
be distracted. Some people even take peppermint oil and put it below
Yeah.
their nose. And then the other thing I was thinking about is when you're with people, generally you're not alone at these people,
Right.
at these places. Think of a couple conversation starters that you can
Mhm. That's
have
right.
with the people you're with, that, and you vow to learn one or two or three new things about that person that you never
That's
knew
right.
before.
That's
So
right.
you're heavily, deeply in thought over
Mhm.
this new, not new person, but just whoever you were with
Yeah,
to
you're
learn new
engaged.
things.
Love it.
Yes, yes. And I guarantee you, you're going to go home a lot happier.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about on that one?
No, I think just this one other question that I keep, we viewer said sent in. I keep hearing you guys talk about food prep, that you guys both do it. I just don't have time to spend all that time at once. Are there any other options? So, what are your thoughts on that one?
So I get on a soapbox on this because first of all, I'm going to say yes, you're right. It takes time. I'm not going to argue that, but I would love for you to get out your stopwatch and see how long it takes doing food prep. And then if you ever want to time yourself and see how much time you would spend daily on doing it, I think you would be shocked
Yes.
and amazed at
Yes.
the time saving to do the food prep to cook in bulk.
Yeah,
Not only physical time, but the emotional toll of setting yourself up for risky behaviors.
that's right.
I having my food on hand and ready to go, I cannot tell you. Well, I've said before, that's my number one tip for me in
Mhm.
staying safe in recovery is having my food prepped and planned ahead of time. I am not a girl who at the last minute is going to decide what should I eat. That is
Right.
certain death. So I am here to say that is a myth. If you think food prep takes a long time, you
Yeah.
know what takes a long time is recovering from a binge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yep.
want
And
to,
money for me is a
oh,
big
sure.
consideration, that I'm able to save a ton of money when I don't prepare. I end up eating out a lot. Years of doing that. Sometimes because of cravings, or sometimes just because of convenience. And I was so afraid to let myself go hungry,
Hmm.
because I don't know what exactly I thought would happen, but apparently I was just it was very anxiety producing for me to be hungry. And so I would just go out and get something, or order something in, and the impacts to my health have been tremendous by doing food prep, but also the impacts to my wallet have also been tremendous by doing food prep. And there's ways to keep it
Huge.
super simple. There's ways to keep it super simple. And do it once and not have to do it the rest of the week.
Hmm.
And the one time, depending on what the food I'm prepping is, sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes 3 or 4, but it is always time well spent.
Amen. I agree. Okay. Well, should we say we've got one more, but should we save it for next time?
Think we should save it for next time, because there's a lot
Yep.
more to dig into on that one.
I know. I know. It's a good one. We really appreciate your questions. So keep sending them in. It's
Yes,
it's because you are the ones that have the experience out there. These are real issues that we're tackling. And I guarantee you the questions that you send in are things that everybody else wants to know the answer to as well.
exactly.
So we appreciate your time and effort in that. Okay, friend. Well, you have any parting words?
Thanks for listening, guys. It's
Yeah.
always good to be here with you, Paige. And next time, I know that as we dive into episode 8, we're going to be talking about consistency, a topic
Mhm.
that many of us want to talk more about. So I'm excited to dive in there.
I'm really excited about this one too, because you would think, there's not that much, just be consistent. In end of story. There is a lot to dive into
Yes.
and explore on that. And I think you'll like it more than you even think you will. So I'm excited to get that one going too.
Agreed. All
All
right, Paige.
right. Bye guys. See you
Take care,
later.
guys. See you in
Uh-huh.
the next episode of Real Food Recovery. Thanks for listening.